big hello, everyone. Here we are back with another one of these birthday series, Yeah, first birthday celebration series, like chats with. Now, where do we start, Stash? Like, seriously, there's so much we can talk about, but we're going to keep this succinct, and I'm going to ask you the same 3 questions I've been asking, or going to ask every one of our guests for this birthday series. But I need to really highlight, if anyone's not been listening to the podcast since the beginning and hasn't caught our early episodes, you were the very first guest that I invited to come and be on She Leads, She Thrives. Back in, oh goodness me, or we recorded it, and I think it went live in October. So, because it was episode 5. Yeah. So feels like a long time ago now, but about a year ago, give or take a little bit, was when we shared our first conversation. And we really focused on your pioneering work, which is kind of obvious because you're a pioneer seeker as one of your archetypes, but your pioneering work in the space of period coaching. And I guess that's a point to also highlight. I think the rest of the world knows when we say period that we're talking about menstruation. In the US, of course, that has another alternate meaning, doesn't it? So I'd love you, my beautiful friend, to come and introduce yourself, and then we'll get stuck into conversation for this special series.
Well, an absolute honor to get to be the first interviewee on the podcast. So just thank you again. That was an absolute delight. I love going first. Great.
Of course you do. But we had such a fun conversation. So yeah, and we will make sure we link that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Stasha. I am the period coach. I am the founder of Period Coaching School, where I certify people to become period and or menstrual cycle coaches. Of course, people call themselves all sorts of things, but yeah, we have the international certification. So it's a fun school and program. I've been doing this work for about 10 years because I have endometriosis, and it really made it impossible for me to hold down a normal person job. I am unemployable. So it really set me down a path of, well, how do I keep a roof over my head? I can't work a normal job. And that's sort of stumbled me down the path until I realized that working in menstruation, normalizing these conversations, educating, really using my mentor teacher archetype there, obviously with Period Coaching School, really was like a basis of what fills up my soul and lights me up and brings me in, profitable business. So it was quite a journey, but, as my heroine adventurer enjoys a journey out there in the wild, I certainly learned a lot along the way, and I'm really happy to be here now.
Yeah, so good. And what we are doing for this birthday series, if anyone hasn't caught any of these interviews, or not really interviews, they're conversations. I don't like the word interview, but these conversations is going back and doing a bit of reflection, because most of the guests that I've invited back, there's a number of reasons. You were one of the earlier guests on the podcast, like you literally the first one, but also your episodes have performed so well over the course of this last year, or since your episodes went live, and consistently continue to get downloads, whether you're sharing the episode with your community or I'm resharing things, they're still getting found and listened to, which I love. And that shows me that the topics that we talked about were things that people really have interest in. And I think it could easily be dismissed by a lot of women out there, because this podcast is focused on, the female gender, as she leads, she thrives, with all the she's in there, that people could dismiss, or women could dismiss, the link between periods, menstruation, and even moving out of that into our peri and then menopausal phases, and still being cyclical, individuals. That miss the link and the importance of connecting that to business. I know you've done that so well. That's not what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to jump in to ask you these questions. So in the last year, what would you say has been your greatest personal evolution?
Yeah, well, you kind of watched this unfold.
I did.
I have a house for the first time in years. So I went from college to New York City, where you're in an apartment, to Los Angeles, where I was in an apartment. There were a couple other stops in there, but all in apartments and rentals. And then, oh gosh, it must have been 8, 10 years ago, I went nomad and I just put all of my stuff in storage. I got rid of like 75% of my things, put everything into storage, and then just went out on the road. I love to travel. Los Angeles is insane. I was like, why am I spending all of this money when what I want to do is be other places?
Mm,
So, like, why am I spending all of this money on Los Angeles rent when I could take that same amount of money and travel really well?
yeah.
So I was like, that's it. I'm going out and I'm going nomad. And I loved it. And I went nomad for a long time. And then quite literally the opportunity for a house fell in my lap and I took it. And so now my partner and I have this house where we actually live in a house that's not a rental. That, it's an amazing change of pace. But like, I've never had this is where I live.
Yeah.
I can paint the walls whatever color I want.
Which
I
is
can put in a shelf. I can blow out a wall. Like, I can do whatever I want because it's my house now. So that's been a huge change, a first for me. So yeah, that's been the biggest change in my life for
yeah.
sure, in my
And
personal life in the last year.
yeah, and how has that influenced then your business, having that, one base that you call home?
I think it's not easier. I don't think it's easier. I mean, it is, like, scheduling is easier, knowing when I'm going to be available is
Yeah.
easier. Kind of like those little things are definitely easier. But I was always working my business with my cycle. So as soon as I started doing that, it's always sort of maintained the same level. Like, my hours of being a nomad, I'll be interested to see what my hours look like at the end of this year. But my hours, like, I meticulously track, have been this exact same from going nomad to moving into the house last year. So
Okay.
the last year and the year before, hours were, for an entire year, I was 10 hours difference between
Wow.
the two. So
Talk about
very, very much the
consistency.
same.
Yeah,
But
talk
the fun, I can buy fun things now.
yeah.
Like, for my office, I painted the wall for my brand colors. Like, I had these old red floating shelves I got out of storage and was like, oh, shelves for my business wall. Like, being able to, like, it really is kind of like just girl out and like buy some more fun clothes for business video chats and buy some fun tchotchkes for the business, and making sure I've got like the desk. Like, I got a new desk. Oh my God, I love my desk. I would marry my desk if
Oh,
it
that's so cool.
proposed. It's
And I
just like I
remember
have this big desk now.
yeah, yeah. And earlier this year in 2023, you were in Australia and you came and spent some time with me here in Perth. So we had a great couple of weeks together. And I remember at that time you were talking with Chris, your partner, around what desk you were going to get. So I'm so happy that you got the one that you love as much as you just shared. That's so cool. I love it. So what has it, this might have something to do with what you just shared, but the second question I'd love to know your answer to is, what's gone on behind the scenes for you in this past year that we haven't seen on your social media?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say there's a lot that I don't share on social
Yeah,
media because I am basically an open book.
you are.
But I will say that something I haven't talked about a lot, and actually, this is something that I think should be a blog post. Like,
Mm,
just kind of thinking about this, it's made me realize that the money anxiety. So going from digital nomad and just kind of being like, I need to know where my rent is coming from or where my flights are going to be paid. I often travel with a one-way ticket. So it's like, will I be able to fly back? So just kind of having that basic underlying money anxiety as I was building the business and being a nomad at the same time. And then, growing up poor, growing up with money, concerns, living in New York City and Los Angeles, it kind of is a thing as well. So I've just always had this like money anxiety my whole life of like, I have to make decisions very smart, very
yes.
practically, very lean, very focused and controlled. I am definitely a saver, not a spend. You like pulling money out of me is a challenge, right?
Yeah.
So it was this last year that I just kind of went, oh my goodness, like, I don't have to think like that. I'm making good
Mm,
money. I have a roof over my head. I'm making more than I need. So, I'm investing. It's like, so well, then why am I still running the same programming of money anxiety? So kind of like a moment where it's just like, you're reinvesting, 6,500 in a retirement account every year. You're investing in CDs and locking some money away for higher interest rate gains for years at a time that you can't get to. Like, you have extra. So why are you still like making all of your decisions based on what's the lowest price, the best rate, the, most bang for my buck, when it was like, or what if I just got the desk that I really wanted?
Right. It's
Instead
such a
of
shift.
worrying about the
Mm.
Yeah. So that for me has been a practice. And I want to be very clear that it's a practice that I'm still
Yeah.
practicing,
Yeah.
even just like going out to dinner. Like that was even a thing where we were out running around. We just bought a new car. We are doing all these things. And I was like, I'm kind of hungry. And my first instinct was like, okay, well, let's just go home and make lunch. And I was like, or we could go get tacos. Let's just
That's
go
it,
get
right?
lunch
Get the
out.
tacos. Yeah.
But it was that mindset moment where I was like, all right, let's get home. We'll make something from the refrigerator, whatever. And then I was like, oh, but we could just go out.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, but you just put all this money into a car. What are you thinking? You can't go out to eat. You've spent money.
Oh,
No, let's just go out to eat.
yeah, the money stories, the money beliefs, the money patterns, and how long we have had them run a certain way. So interesting, isn't it? But I love that your awareness is expanded and you're thinking about this. But yeah, definitely blog post. And then, when you have that blog post published, hopefully it's before this goes live or even afterwards, we'll add the link into there if anyone wants to read that. Yeah, it's a good thing. So my final question for you is, what do you wish you'd known a year ago that you know now as a business leader?
This is one of those things that I don't know if it's something that I didn't know, but I think it's something that I didn't embrace in practice as much.
Okay.
And very similar to switching that mindset is I was making my offers in my business with I need to make money.
Yeah.
So what am I going to offer so that I can make money? Rather than what can I offer that I know my people need and want and would be fun for me?
Yes.
And
Okay.
it's,
Big difference.
again, just switch in mindset, really. But it was just one of those things that was just not very conscious, where it was like, I need to make money. I need to do an offer. What have people asked me for? Let me do that so that I can make money right now. And instead of going, I don't need to make money right now, I am making money right now. What do I want to do that would be fun for me and would provide value that people have, asked for or wanted or whatever, and I want to do, not just because people have asked for it and it will make money now.
Yeah, that's a huge shift. And the reality is that there are so many times in our lives and transitions and experiences we go through, what's happened in the world the last 3.5 or so years, where our security gets threatened in different ways. And I can see how easy it is then to switch into that space, that mindset space of, I need to make money and I have to make, this amount actually extra because there's all these other, increasing bills and cost of living and so many other things going on. So that comes from such a different space, as you said, than being able to go, okay, like what is actually valuable out there for my community, and that I'll also have fun doing, that I'll be energized by doing, that will, for you particularly, I know, fit within your working in flow, yeah, in a whole different way than what others would look at that. So that's a really great piece of wisdom to tap into and to remember moving forward as well, right? Because there's patterns that
Yeah,
we
because
go
it
here
can
and
be
fall back in.
both. Yeah, it can absolutely be both. Like you can be of service and do the thing that you want to do. Like it's just, it makes you go from feeling kind of tense and driven and tight and squeezed to easeful and enjoying. And And it does make you want to do it more. It makes you want to do the social media posts. Like, you know, you and I were introverts. Social media is not exactly where I want to spend my time, but it makes me want to share because I'm excited about it
Yes. And
versus going, I have to share. I
yes,
need to make the money.
huge
Yeah.
difference. And I find it so interesting when you have conversations with people about showing up, being visible in the digital space, whether it's social media or writing blogs or doing interviews, whatever it looks like. And they're like, oh, it's so hard, or I never know what to say, or, you know, I don't even know where to start, or even what I'm offering right now. And it's like, well, where's the fun? Like, what are you doing that's energizing you and you really enjoy? And usually there's not a lot. And that is a big contributor, so much so. I love it. Love it. Incredible wisdom, of course, as I expected from you. So how can people connect with you the easiest? So where do they go to find and connect with you if they don't already follow you online?
Instagram at Stasha Washburn, easiest way to just shoot me a DM and pop up. But otherwise, you're always welcome to head over to periodcoachingschool.com or theperiodcoach.com and check out the goods there.
Yeah, so many. I mean, you're one of a number of people who I have, well, we've been connected to you and we've been, you know, developed this gorgeous friendship that we have, but for some time now. And you've always got great resources, new stuff coming in, but you also remind people of what's already there. So if anyone's listening to our conversation today, to definitely go back and listen to the episode 5 of She Leads, She Thrives. We'll link that into the show notes to listen to Stasha and I talk about where she was at and what she was doing with period coaching and really pioneering in this space. But also follow up on those websites, follow her on Instagram, because if you're looking for any resources to support you as a cycling woman, then definitely it's a place to go for sure, right? The destination to go. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me. It's so good to chat to you again and to capture another little piece of your wisdom to share with the world. And to, you know, to have you back as our very first guest. If we do a birthday series like this every year, you know, you might just be on the come back in every year, because that's the thing about having been the first guest. Where is she now?
I'm in.
Yeah. Very fun. And listeners,
Booked. Just
book yeah, definitely. Listeners, thank you for tuning in as well and listening to this conversation I've had with Stasha today. Thank you for your ongoing support. We wouldn't be where we are in our first birthday with She Leads, She Thrives. You know, I feel that I would have shared these conversations even if there was not really many people listening, but seeing so many of you listening and downloading all around the world, 30 plus different countries, you know, hopefully this birthday week we will surpass our 50,000 downloads. It's just been phenomenal and so much fun to connect with some incredible women in all kind of corners of the earth. My challenge for year 2 is to see how many additional incredible souls I can connect with in new places that I haven't yet, you know, had conversations with guests. So if you are someone out there listening and thinking that you might be someone that could be a part of that, then reach out, follow me, connect with me, build a relationship. Because if you haven't heard me share this before, my guest strategy is to only invite people that I actually have an existing connection relationship with. And I know that that adds to the richness and the value of the conversations we create and share with you. So wherever you are in the world, have a fabulous day. Enjoy this birthday series. And I look forward to connecting with you very soon. Thanks, Stasha. I'll see you soon. Now, what a fabulous thing it is to welcome back one of our guests. In fact, the episode featuring you, Annie, was our 10th episode, right back kind of in the early phases of She Leads, She Thrives, right? Like not quite a year ago from when we'll be sharing this, but coming up close to that. So it was officially our 10th episode. And the focus of our conversation back then was around leading a more racially inclusive business. It's your jam, right? That's your thing.
That is my thing through and through.
So much. So just for anyone who didn't catch that episode, firstly, we'll tag that in so you can go back and listen to that, because I'm sure after you listen to our conversation today, you'll want to go and hear the full episode that I recorded with Annie last year in 2022. But Annie Gichuru and I have known each other for some time now and got to know each other on a whole different level in the last couple of years, in the masterclasses, the programs, it's almost like the activated experience that we've just wrapped up recently was like a mastermind more than a program. So we've done some really amazing things together, and it's been such an eye-opening, heart-opening experience for me working with you to discover, to unlearn, to learn, to be challenged in the most beautiful ways around all the things, many that I didn't even expect would come up. But I think that's part of the gift and the excitement for me around how I could lead a more racially inclusive business, both as a coach with Thrive Factor Co, and then as a lead educator in the Thrive Factor School with the self-leadership coaching certification. So tell us a tiny bit about you. We're not going to kind of do bios as such officially this time. We'll include that in the show notes for anyone who wants to read more about you, Annie. But I'd love you to give us a bit of an introduction. Then we're going to dive into the 3 questions. I always put the wrong number of fingers up. The 3 questions I'm going to ask every one of our guests that I've invited back for this very special first birthday series for She Leads, She Thrives. And the reason that I've invited you is because your episode is still ranking as one of our most downloaded in this first year that we've been live. So
wow,
where you
what
are.
an honor. Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. And firstly, congratulations on 1 year celebrating that. That's a huge milestone, especially when it comes to podcasts and just, putting out really valuable content on a very regular basis. So congratulations on that. And thank you so much for having me back. What an honor to be invited back, and what a treat. I'm so excited for us to dive in. For those of you who are tuning in and you don't know who I am, my name is Annie Gichuru. I'm a racial equity coach for online business owners who are ready to build businesses that are racially equitable so they can be intentionally inclusive. The key word here being intentional with your inclusivity, especially because we live in a world whereby we have been taught to be who we are. We subscribe to systems that a lot of the times we do not know that we are subscribed to them, and they cause us to behave in certain ways. They shape our belief systems, and in so doing, contribute to how we build our businesses, how we support our clients. And so being intentional about inclusion is what I focus on, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today, Shannon.
I know it's going to be so good. I'm not surprised that your episode has been so popular, Annie, because this topic and your area of expertise is so needed in the world. And I know that I've shared with you, and I'm sure I shared it in our episode we recorded and shared last year. For me, choosing to work with you was a no-brainer. And you kind of ticked more boxes than I even knew I had around the kind of person that I wanted to be my mentor and my guide and my challenger, and the one that would spark more curiosity in me around this area, because it's such an important thing. But in these questions, I wanted to reflect for each of the guests, no matter when your episode went live on She Leads, She Thrives, kind of what's happened for you in the last year, considering we're at the first birthday for the podcast. So the first question I'd love to know about is, in the last year, what's been your greatest personal evolution?
Gosh, a lot has happened in the last 12 months, but on a personal, so this is not business, on a personal evolution has been returning back home to Kenya after 4 years, and of course, very much impacted by the pandemic and not being able to go back home as often as we normally do. So from a personal perspective, just being on Kenyan soil, just being with my people, not having to think about my surroundings, where I am and how I have to behave, or feeling like the odd one out, or like I don't fit in, like I don't belong. There's something about being home. There's something about being surrounded by your people, speaking your language, eating your food, and just being in that culture where you belong. And I think it hit home a lot harder for me this time. It really was a lot more personal, firstly because of not being home for such a long time.
Yes, that is
and before the last time I was home, I wasn't doing this work in this kind of deep way that I am now. This is post the murder of George Floyd. So a lot has happened from a racial perspective. And so the travel of getting to Nairobi, the looking around and the seeing the faces just changing from being in a predominantly white space to now checking into a predominantly Black space was also something that my body had to take in. And I remember getting so emotional standing in line as we were, getting into the flight that would take us to Nairobi, and just feeling just emotional, seeing Black people speaking their language, being in that mix. And I just felt so grateful to be in that space, because it's one that I had never felt the need to be grateful for, because I just was. And so I went home with a very different lens, came back with a whole different feeling in terms of my identity and belonging. And so I would say that's probably been one of my biggest things that has happened from a personal perspective.
Yeah. I remember seeing or tuning into the stories that you were sharing, and I know Instagram's your favorite place to be online in terms of connecting and sharing content at that time that you were in Kenya and with your family. And it felt such a privilege and an expansion even for me, being witness to what you were sharing and giving us some insight into what that was like. And I remember, Annie, feeling that emotion. Yeah, certainly I didn't get to be in line with you at the time when that kind of first welled up, but I could still feel what you may be going through and what that was like. And to be honest, I kind of not forgotten, but in some ways I had forgotten that this work you're doing now and the way that you're in it so deeply is new compared to when you were last home. So what a gift. Hey?
And I think also not taking people for granted, the conversations that we would have that, we kind of took for granted, sitting around at the dinner table and having conversations, speaking your language. Those are just things that just happen and have happened all of my life. But this time there was so much intentionality in presence, being present with people, and also going back home and knowing that there's some loved ones who were no longer with us, and just being present with knowing the gift of life and having a lot of gratitude and just feeling like, wow, I am so blessed to be here in this time and to experience this. So it was a very, very different but very rewarding feeling. And I'm so glad that, a lot of you got to come along behind the scenes and experience this, and people going like, oh my God, I didn't know Nairobi had such beautiful supermarkets. If that was what was here, then I would want to go grocery shopping.
Right?
Like, it was also a lot of cultural awareness, because people think Africa and they think certain things, illness, poverty, just all these things that we're shown in mass media, but there's another side that y'all don't get to see. There's a whole other side that is beautiful, that is rich, that is just a place that you would want to go on holiday and enjoy. And I got to share some of those snippets.
You did. I'm just thinking, as you mentioned the supermarket, then I remember being shocked, because I have been to Nairobi, but it was in the 1990s, Annie. That's a long time ago now.
Oh, yes.
So I was like, oh my goodness, look at that. Because of course, supermarkets back then were not like they are now.
No, they're not.
Being so expanded with seeing the different countries through Southern Africa that I traveled to back then, around the landscape, the beauty that was everywhere, the actual infrastructure that I didn't imagine because of what I'd seen in mass media, the rich conversations I had with people where I was the one asking about all kinds of things, because I was so fascinated around culture, like dance and music and art, things that really connect to me with learning about people and where they're from. And I definitely will be going back, traveling more of Africa in the future for sure. Fabulous. So our next question: what's gone on behind the scenes for you this past year in business that maybe we haven't seen on your socials?
Building of relationships at a deeper level with my clients, with students, and seeing a lot of the things that I have been teaching and saying, if you do this, this is what the outcome will be. And now seeing that come to fruition for, my clients and students, it has just been such a beautiful thing to watch, because it's one thing to teach somebody, to hold space for them and say, this is what you need to do. This is what would make it your business more inclusive. And then seeing the longevity, seeing the reward of being in this work of inclusion for an extended period of time, and what that looks like. And what my clients are teaching back to me, as much as I am an educator and there to really hold space for them and open their eyes and lead them into a more inclusive business, I have also learned some of the things that I have been teaching, different things. Like, for example, not all white tears are harmful. I came from the lens of white fragility and what that does and gets in the way of inclusion work when we shift lenses and have to then cater to the white fragility in the room. Now, learning the biggest lesson of those who have perhaps caused harm, said the wrong thing, holding space for them, allowing them to get vulnerable, shed their tears, and hold that space for them, has been such an incredible thing for me to learn, and to see them transition from being so fearful and afraid of making a mistake, learning through whatever thing they have done or mistake that they have made, and staying in the work, being bigger advocates and becoming more genuine allies in this work because of the space that was held for them, the permission to be vulnerable, and just something that hasn't been spoken about a lot in this space, and the permission just to, it's okay to feel the pain, it's okay to shed tears, it's okay to be vulnerable, and to be held in that space by a Black person who is educating you. So that has been probably one of the things that has happened that has been transformational for me behind the scenes, because this is deep work, it's personal work. Can't share everything on social media or with followers, but that's the work that's been happening that, has been a teacher to me as well.
I love it. I love it. What an inspiration and a gift to you to be able to reflect and to share that that's what's been going on. And the thing that stood out, there's so many things stood out in what you just shared, Annie, but the one that's coming to mind now to just talk about briefly is, as you said, to be able to be in that space with a client or group, because I know you've had, a number of rounds of represented, and then we've done activated, and you've done your masterclasses and lots of different learning experiences that you've held space for the people in that. But to see that people have stayed in the work rather than taking the possibly very easy option and kind of bailing out, which this is you and I shared in our podcast episode last time, and in the other many conversations we've shared. This is not easy work for a lot of people, irrelevant of your color. But I feel like there is a lot of permission, maybe unspoken permission, to bail out quickly when it gets too hard or difficult or uncomfortable. So to have that experience for people where they have had your support and they have stayed in, like, oh, that must just make your heart swell so much with all kinds of things.
No, it has been very expanding for me, and also just giving myself permission to do this work in a way that feels right for me and the human that I am, because sometimes it's easy to look at what are other people in this space doing, how are others educating, and trying to emulate that as being the standard of how to do inclusion work. But I think it is allowing myself to come as I am. I'm a huge empath. I'm an introvert. And, allowing that to come through. I teach with a lot of compassion, calling in, permission to please do make mistakes. But when you do, and you learn, you do better. And I think that is something that has resonated with a vast majority of the people who say yes to working together, because that is a lens with which they haven't quite seen as much out there. And they're like, you mean I can make mistakes? You mean I can come as I am and I won't be shamed or judged or made to feel guilty? Yeah, absolutely. Because those are the ingredients that make doing this work very difficult and keep a lot of people bystanders. But when you allow people to come as they are and work through whatever it is that they need to work through, we give room for more people to step into this work. And we need everybody stepping into inclusion work, really.
Sure do. Love it. I think one of the things that I've also loved seeing, and possibly is happening more behind the scenes, and you probably don't have as much awareness of it as I do, because I'm looking at it through the lens of your archetypes that you discovered about a year ago as well. So being a mediator diplomat, the way that you really speak from your heart and share your truth and want to offer different options for people to understand, to learn, and to connect with this work has really, for me, it's felt like that has expanded significantly. Your mentor teacher, she's just doing her thing like she does naturally and sharing wisdom, not just knowledge, which is such a shift and a maturity for the mentor teacher, is being able to be in the space of sharing from wisdom, not from I just know things. And then you're inspire a believer, cheerleading people in whatever, as you said, you show up as you are, but also you're welcoming and calling in people to show up as they are and cheerleading them to step more into all the different facets of this work. So that's something that I've been observing and having that close contact with you. It's been such a joy to see and to feel that all coming to life. So I have one final question for you. What, if anything, do you wish you'd known a year ago that you know now as the business leader that you are?
Ooh, this one has been more of a recent learning, like in the past few months, slowing down. I have been on a path of go fast. How quickly can I grow my business? How quickly can I just climb the ladder? And the goalpost obviously keeps being moved. You should be a 6-figure business, a 7-figure business, and these are the secrets to get there. What I have just realized is that I need to slow down in order to speed up. And I have my body, because we've been in winter here in the Southern Hemisphere. And so we have been, kind of forced to slow down weather-wise, but also my health has taken a hit, and so I have been literally forced to stop doing as much as I was doing and to rest. And it has been through that resting that I have realized it allows me to tap into my inner wisdom, as you spoke about, moving from teaching to wisdom giving. And it's really allowed me to tap into my thought, my thought leadership. Whereas before, when you're just doing and watching, it's so easy to get influenced. What are people saying? What are people asking for? But when you're quiet, when you're doing your thing, you are able to tap into, the things that are deeply inside of you that you can only hear when you're quiet. And so I am treasuring slowing down. I'm treasuring not getting to my desk at a certain time, dropped off the kids. It's 9 a.m. now. I need to work. Oh, exactly. I have to give this 6 hours until 3 when I go pick them up. Like just allowing myself to have joy, take care of myself, ask my body what my body needs today or now. Of course, work will still be done, but it doesn't have to be in the rigidity of and lack of flexibility and the guilt of, oh, I didn't get to my to-do list, or I didn't do this and the other. So I'm learning that you can still slow down and still have a really successful business. You can still slow down and still have meaningful impact. Slowing down doesn't mean not moving. It just means moving at a pace that is sustainable.
Yeah, I love that, Annie, so much. One of the things that I talk about frequently is that there is no speed to success. We are all on our own timeline. Often we force that so much, just as you talked about, the have-tos, the should-dos, the must-dos, the listening or tuning in or being influenced by all the noise in the business landscape and the world at large. that can tell us that we need to be or have done a certain something or many things if we're ever going to achieve at a certain level. And I love that there are more of us are recognizing that that's not the case and turning down the volume of the noise and really listening to ourselves in different ways. And I think that is going to change the way that we are able to lead our businesses and share our wisdom and the connection and the gift for our clients, and in us being role models in that, but also what we're able to share with them is going to evolve in such a beautiful way that the richness of that is just going to continue to amplify for them and their experience. So yeah, here's to following your own path, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, what works for you, what works for us individually, which is so good. So that comes to the end of our questions for our birthday series. But what I'd like you to do now, Annie, is share where people can connect with you, and then we'll make sure that we have the links to that into our show notes so that if anyone is interested and they haven't yet connected, they can do that easily.
Absolutely. So the best place to find me on social media is on Instagram. My handle is at annie.gichuru, and that's where I share on a very, very regular basis about how to be inclusive in your life and in your business. Send me a direct message. I love it when people say, look, I listened to your episode and this is what I got out of it. Please come say hello. Or you can go to my website, anniegichuru.com, and there is so much in terms of resources that you will not be short of knowing where to begin your journey when it comes to inclusion, or where to continue your journey if you're already in it.
Yeah, I think if I reflect on even particularly the last year, the number of resources that you do create, and I know a little bit, I guess, behind the scenes of working with you, that the consideration you put into the research you put into what you're going to create as a resource for those that are interested in learning more about this work and the way you work is something that just makes the actual end result of what people get to sign up for and involve themselves with. If you sign up for something with Annie, you really need to make sure you engage with it for sure. Don't pass that opportunity up at all. So Annie, thank you for coming back and chatting with me again, sort of nearly a year on from when your episode. So as I said at the beginning, episode 10 was where you can find Annie, but we'll make sure there's a link in our show notes. So it's very easy to go back and tune into that full conversation that Annie and I had. It's been such a joy to find out where you're at kind of a year later, and also to be able to invite you as one of our guests that's had a very successful episode on She Leads, She Thrives to be part of our birthday celebration series. So thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute joy, Shannon. What a joy. Thank you so much for this time.
Thanks, everybody, for listening in. We'll look forward to sharing a new guest with you in our birthday series very soon. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another of these amazing conversations as part of our first birthday series for She Leads, She Thrives. I'm Shannon Dunn. If you haven't yet come across me as a host, I don't know where you've been. Shall I say that, Penny? I'll get cheeky straight from the beginning. But I'm delighted to welcome Penny Soo back. So Penny was a guest of ours in a very early February 2023 episode, even though she and I recorded the conversation late in 2022. And the focus of our chat at that time was impactful messaging. Like, messaging is such a huge part of your expertise, what you love. And I see you sharing your content around messaging like all the time in such beautiful ways. And at the time, we had already had one episode that went to over 1,000 downloads in the first 7 days that it was live. Your episode was the next one that did that. Yeah, do you remember me messaging you and telling you how?
Yes, I remember that. I know. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I was so excited, and I was like, it blew my mind.
Yeah, I know. And I love when the guests that we've had on the show, when we have such success with different episodes, are always so beautifully surprised and shocked. And that to me just kind of adds to the genuineness and reminds me why I asked you to come and be a guest, because you weren't looking to have lots of download numbers. You just genuinely were interested in coming and having a conversation with me, which is what this is all about. So yeah, so it was episode 21. We will make sure it's linked into the show notes if anyone hasn't yet heard you talk about impactful messaging and what you love so much about it. they can go and do that. And I know for me, some of the feedback I got from my community was around how simple you made it.
Oh, wow.
It's
great to hear.
Yeah. So it's very cool. So welcome back. I'd love it if you
Thank you.
could share just a little bit about what you do and, you know, the kind of people that you support in your business. And then we'll jump into the great questions that I've been asking every one of our guests as part of the birthday series.
Sounds perfect. Thank you, Shannon, for inviting me back for this recording. It just feels like it was just, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago.
It doesn't feel like so long ago, does it?
Right? Oh my God, where the hell's the year gone? Right. So yes, thank you, Shannon. And I had an amazing time in the episode. I think that really helps. Like, you know, you are such an amazing host. And yeah, just a bit of intro about myself. If you're listening to this and you have not listened to episode 21 with me, my name is Penny Soo, and I am a brand and messaging strategist. I work mainly with online service providers like coaches, you know, consultants, most who have online businesses. So I help them with, you know, refining their messaging that is impactful, and they're actually attracting only the best people and the right people to work with them, to really, you know, and also in a way that is actually, you know, highlighting their gifts, not just, you know, like hiding anything, you know, like showing their authenticity and put it on, you know, like full blast. So I love the work that I do. And before yeah. Yeah, it's such an honor to do this. And I have I have quite a long history of working in marketing. That, you know, I started with public relations and working with big multinational corporates and down to nonprofit. So I've really loved this work, and I love that right now I actually can do this for small businesses, people who, you know, like a lot of this very ambitious self-led women who want to do, you know, make an impact, not just want to have a business, because, you know, they know that the work that they do is so important, they're so gifted, and they would do this without even thinking twice. That's doing their life's best work. And I really love supporting them with the messaging, so they get their message out there and attract the best clients who really, really need them in their lives right now. And then work with them.
Yeah, so good. All right. We've got some questions to go through that I've been asking every one of the guests that we've had back on the podcast for this birthday series, and I'm excited to hear your answers. So the first one is, in the last year, what has been your greatest personal evolution? So not necessarily business, but personal evolution.
Oh, I love this question. It's like, it's funny, this year has been so much about my own personal growth, because last year was great, and, you know, for business, and this year is really great for my own personal growth. One of them is actually really prioritizing myself. Something that is so easy when you are, you know, being your own boss. Sometimes you're like, you're not the best boss or the best employee to yourself. And what I've realized, that I really wanted to connect with people offline this year. And this is something that feels so, you know, that I've missed so much over the last 2 years, when we have been on and off, like we can connect and then we can't, and it has been so amazing. So, and I have been doing things that are more aligned to me, rather than, like, you know, I am a very logical minded person.
Wow, yeah.
And I've been doing things like, okay, it works strategically, but also this year I've prioritized my mental health. What works for me, I'm really trying to make everything or work with what aligns with me, and that has been my priority, like doing things that most align with me. And that means, you know, letting go of certain things, like working with the ego, not doing things that is ego driven, because it's like, it's great to be productive, but I realize it's been feeding my ego rather than, you know, what serves me. And sometimes it's great to look like on your day to day, it's like, I got all this done, but do you feel good about having all this done? Would you rather do something else? So I've really been
tuning into that. I've been having so much fun going back to like prioritizing my physical health as well, doing more creative work stuff that actually really, like connecting with friends and going out and play. That has been the biggest change for me this year.
I love it. And it's been good to see that. So the next question is, I'd love to know what's gone on behind the scenes for you that we haven't seen on social media. So I feel like a lot of what you just shared in your personal evolution, we actually have seen. So you, like a lot of the guests that we have on She Leads, She Thrives, Penny, share a lot online. Like you it's part of your, again, your brand, your messaging is to be authentic, to share some of your vulnerabilities, your stories, what you're doing in your days. Like I love it when I see you sharing in your stories when you're out walking with your beautiful puppy and, just getting out in nature, having coffee somewhere, eating. I know you can tell you're a foodie because you often share like restaurants and things you've been eating. But what's going on behind the scenes that we haven't seen on social media?
Well, something that I haven't talked about very often, which because I share a lot of my life. I try to be transparent. That's the easiest way to put out, to share content. If you're holding it back, it makes it so hard. But one thing that I haven't shared a ton is actually, going back into outside of work, I am a circus artist or aerialist.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, for a lot of people, like they think that I'm not afraid of height. I'm super afraid of height. I'm very scared of height. But I also find it really fun when I actually can conquer the fear. So this, what I love, I've been doing a lot in the last, I think started with February when I took on the 75 Hard Challenge. That was like a reset for my health. And that has been really something that I really needed. It felt like it was like part of my identity that was gone over the whole lockdown because I wasn't able to come and work with people, hold hands. We work in groups and we hold hands, or home feet and things like that. And to be totally feel like, oh my God, we can do this. This is so fun. This is like, all we have gone through over the last 2 years is finally behind us. We can do this again. And it's so nice to talk and touch and hug people.
I know. I think even if you're not a touchy-feely person, I think everybody missed human contact, didn't they? Yeah,
so much. It's like, like I am a hugger, and it's like it was so weird for me in the last couple of years where like you want to hug someone but you're not sure if they want it. So it's like, okay. And just being, going to a lot of live events, that I'm a foodie. I go out and meet a lot of friends, go for live shows, theaters, just being, to actually go out there and really, enjoy movies and live performance. That has been the greatest, the most memorable thing this year.
That's very cool. So the next and final question I have for you today is, what do you wish you'd known kind of a year ago that you know now as a woman leading in business in your space?
What I wish I would have known, I don't. That's a very good question. I think the most important thing I've realized, because I've taken, I've reduced my work hours. One thing for myself is like to realize that nobody dies if you take time for yourself.
Okay, prioritize you, and that may mean less hours in your business.
Yeah, nobody dies. Nothing falls apart. Nothing, no one. It doesn't matter, right? So if like sometimes it's like I do a lot of things. I was like, oh, let's do this because I want to get things out. But then I realized, hey, come on, give yourself, a breather. You don't have to rush it. And sometimes I get so excited about things, and I get it all out. Well, I don't have to. So I've really learned that, things, in divine timing, I really start to see, things will happen when it's meant to happen. You don't have to push. And sometimes we can't rush certain things. And things, like I've also behind the scenes, I've been having, I don't have a huge team. I try not to do that. And also, hiring people and training them. And that has been something that I've really prioritized this year so that I have more time for myself, which is still a work in progress.
Yeah. think it's always a work in progress, but what a great thing it is when you get to that point of understanding what is the priority from a self perspective, and then are able to create a business and a life that does prioritize you. It's such a rewarding experience, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we start, and then when we get somewhere, like when we grow our business, sometimes it's good to come back to, like, as if when we start, we are like, all bushy tail and we're excited and do things and try a lot of things. And because you're not afraid of failure, there's like nothing to lose. And when you have achieved a certain amount of success, you're so fearful of you're failing because you've achieved all that. You're like, well, this month, like if I have, this event and I didn't have the same amount of people coming in this time versus, 3 months ago or last year, it's like, and then you feel like, oh my God, what's happening? But then it's like, well, things do happen. Does it mean that, I don't need all this to validate me as a person? And it doesn't mean my work is less worthy. And it's really learning to, to not let the ego.
Yeah, I know. Ego's got a lot to answer for.
Yeah.
I love it. That's been so fun. I'm so glad that we had you back and that we got to kind of check in. Well, where's Penny now? What's she up to? What have you learned and what are you focusing on? If anyone's listening and they're not yet following you and connected with you in the online world, where's the best place for them to do that? And then we'll make sure, like we did last time, that all those links are in the show notes.
Yeah, so I have been more present on Instagram this year than the last. My main platform is still Facebook, but yeah, if your favorite platform is Instagram, let's connect on Instagram. My handle is it's Penny Soo. I think you're gonna put a link in the show notes anyway. Yeah, so yeah, let's connect. And if you like food, if you like dogs, having fun, yeah, let's just connect.
You'll see lots of that, won't you? Like we're looking at your stories and all of your content. You definitely get to know your puppy. Like, so Blue gets a big feature, and I can see why. He looks like he's very charismatic from what we can see and what you talk about. Yeah, lots of food pictures. So if you're like a big foodie, you'll love what Penny's sharing, because there's always pictures of where she's out, what she's eating. Coffee. I see lots of pictures of coffee.
Oh, yes.
Walking, and all the great fun things to do. And the fact you mentioned before that you do circus art doesn't surprise me now, because I can think back to the times where I've seen you sharing kind of acrobatic stuff that you've been doing a little bit in your stories. Like, now that all makes sense. So yeah, lots of So thank you for joining me, for coming back and
thank you so much.
Coming back and having a conversation. And listeners, thank you for tuning in to part of this this great conversation I've just had with Penny as part of our first birthday celebration series for She Leads, She Thrives. If you're a new listener, welcome. If you've been around for a while, thank you for being here and supporting us, because I say this often, I would still show up and create these conversations, do the solo episodes, even if we didn't have a lot of listeners. But the fact we've got so many in so many different countries around the world just makes it so much more exciting and joyful for me to do this. So yeah, very, very cool. So thanks everyone. And wherever you are in the world, have a fabulous day.